Hello and welcome to the program. Our today's topic is Islamic education during medieval period, and we will discuss its salient features and objectives. Dear students, we will get acquainted with the following objectives. First, an understanding about the philosophy of Islamic education during medieval period. Second, a look over the salient features of Islamic education during medieval period. Third, get acquainted with objectives of Islamic education during medieval period. Islamic pattern of education in India has two facts. First, Muslim education did not reach at a high point in India as in some other Muslim lands. It is at least partly accounted for by India being separated remotely from the rest of the Muslim world. Secondly, there was no continuous growth and development of Muslim education in India. It was due to the fact that in most cases, commendable work done by the ruler has been undone by his successor and their indifference and neglect. The types of institutions in that period included maktabs, madrasas, khanqahs, dargahs and karkhanas. Primary education was given in maktabs and was run by private individuals, imparting rudimentary education in 3 hours and the prayers based on the Quran. Higher education was imparted in madrasas. Admission to maktabas was marked by a colorful ceremony called Bismillah Khani. However, in case of girls, this ceremony was called Zarfishani. Khanqahs were analogues to the monasteries of medieval Europe and mostly imparted moral and religious education based on teachings of Quran. Dargahs were tombs of celebrated saints which would propagate philosophy. The institutions of karkhanas provided technical training in handicrafts based on the system of apprenticeship. Muslim education system was essentially religious in character. Now, dear students, we will discuss salient features of Islamic education. First, we will discuss aim of education. The aim of education during this period was the extension of knowledge and propagation of Islamic principles, laws, and social conventions. The whole education system was saturated with religious ideals which influenced the aim, contents of study, and even the daily life of the pupils. The Muslim education was also aimed at achievement of material prosperity. Second, patronage. During the Muslim period, education received a great patronage of state. The Muslim rulers established many maktabs, madrasas, libraries, etc. and patronized many scholars. They also granted scholarships to many students. Third, religious orthodoxy. Spreading Islam was considered the most sacred duty of every Muslim citizen. Principles and beliefs of Islam could be best propagated through education. Thus convinced, the Muslim rulers and beneficiaries established maktabs and madrasas where the study of Holy Quran became prominent feature. These institutions were built near the mosques where theological thinking could flourish to the maximum extent. The Islamic laws, opinions, customs, and doctrines were subjects of study, and all students were required to master them, so that this knowledge could help them in bringing the non-Muslim under the fold of Islam. A spirit of religiousness was strongly imbibed among the Muslim youth, so that they could serve the cause of propagating Islam hastily. Fourth, organization of education. Education was organized in maktabs and madrasas. Primary education was given in maktabs and higher education was given in madrasas. The maktab was primary school often attached to mosque. The content of education given in maktabs was different in different places. Instruction in those portions of Quran which a Muslim is expected to know by heart in order to perform his devotions and other religious functions was a common feature of education in maktabs. Sometimes instructions in reading, writing and simple arithmetic was included in curriculum. Madrasas were generally attached to mosques. Some of them rose to the status of universities. The course in madrasas included grammar, rhetoric, logic, theology, literature, jurisprudence, and science. Certain subjects were more cultivated in some centers than in others. Fifth, discipline. Pupils were generally well behaved, morally strong, and humble. When a pupil was found breaking rules of conduct, he was punished adequately. The type and manner of imposing punishment was left to the discretion of teacher. The reason behind such a harsh treatment was not vengeance but correction and preservation of discipline among others. Cooperation of students was also sought in maintenance of discipline. Sixth, the teacher-taught relationship. In the Muslim period, the student was always humble and polite to his teacher and served him wholeheartedly. The teacher always regarded the student as his son. He had a constant touch with him and thus influenced his personality development. There was mutual reverence, confidence, and communion of life. 7. Examination. The system of examination was not prevalent in the Muslim period. Evaluation was inbuilt, continuous process. Promotions were based on teachers themselves. Degrees came to be awarded for specialized and in-depth study in various branches of learning. The most important of these degrees were Fazil, specialized in logic, Alim, specialized in theology, and Kamil, specialized in literature. Next is town-centered education. A notable feature of Muslim education in India was that it was mainly in the towns and cities. In this respect, it was contrast to Brahmanic education, which was mainly centered in places away from the din and bustle of the city. This peculiar feature of Muslim education was mainly due to two factors. First, The Muslim population in the early years of Muslim rule was in many places largely an urban population. Secondly, the Muslim education developed on the patronage and encouragement of ruling sovereigns, the nobility and gentry who lived in capital towns and cities. Thus, Delhi, Firozabad, Agra, Lahore, Jaunpur and Bidar became centers of learning during the medieval period. Ninth is methods of teaching. Oral education and memorization of assigned lessons were the chief methods of teaching during the Muslim period. Emphasis was placed on memorization in addition to reading, writing, and arithmetic. As the method of teaching was oral, the main task of the teacher was to give lectures and the student used to listen them passively. The students were advised to read some relevant books. They were required to prepare their lessons individually. This method made them active. Individual attention was paid to students. The monitor system had been used in maktabs and madrasas. 10th, vocational education. During the Muslim period, there was provision for vocational training and professional education. This helped to develop handicrafts and other industries. A large number of cottage industries and workshops were established at important places. Facilities of the training in sculpture, embroidery, decorations, and architecture were made available. Thus, in artistic work, this age was at its zenith. Next, education of women. Women's education was almost totally neglected in Muslim period. The Parda system, which shut up all the Muslim women except young girls in seclusion, made their education in matter of great difficulty. The girls were entitled to receive education equal to that of boys up to a definite age, but thereafter their education was stopped. However, the girls of higher classes used to continue their studies at home. There have been some very learned women who made unique contributions to the development of literature during Muslim period. The Empress Noor Jahan was a learned woman. She very well carried on state administration. Arrangements for education of princesses were made in the palace. Similarly, rich people used to arrange education of their girls in their own homes. Sultana Razia, Princess Gulbadan, daughter of Babar, Aurangzeb's daughter, Zebun Nisa are the examples of learned royal ladies. Next is medium of education. During the Muslim period, Arabic and Persian were the media of education. However, after the growth of Urdu, education began to be imparted through this language. Next point is state control on education. Muslim education during the medieval period was not only patronized and subsidized by the state, but was also guided and controlled by it. The office of the Sadr or Sheikhul Islam, Minister for Judicial Affairs, had the responsibility for coordinating the education imparted in the institution run by the state and private individuals. The state schools employed teachers, and education was free for poor and promising students. In addition, orphanages were maintained by the princes and emirs. However, schools held in private houses charged fees generally payable in kind. The next point is curriculum. The syllabus of education in the Muslim period included such subjects as the Holy Quran, the biography of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the history and the laws of Islam, Arabic and Persian grammar, literature, logic, philosophy, law, astrology, history, geography, agriculture, Unani system of medicine, etc. There were provisions for teaching Sanskrit to Hindu students. Madrasas provided both religious and material or worldly education. Subjects of religious education included Quran, Islamic laws, history and Sufi philosophy, while worldly or material education consists of grammar, language, literature, etc. There were some specialized centers for education in particular subjects. Dear students, now we will have a look on objectives of Islamic education. First, the objective of Muslim education was spread of knowledge. Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that knowledge is a divine and without it salvation is not possible. The main objective of Islamic education was extension of knowledge in order to draw attention to Islam and its role in the world in terms of politics, economics, social structure, etc. The purpose of spreading knowledge was to enhance the Islamic perspective of students and their critical thinking, problem solving and creativity skill needed to function successfully as Muslims in society. Second, propagation of Islam. Religion was basis of education and hence the purpose of education was propagation of religion. It was for this reason knowledge of Quran was imparted in maktabs. Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had also declared that a proper and liberal education was the finest of gifts that parents could bestow on their children. Third is strengthening the administration. Another objective of Muslim education was to strengthen the administration. Muslim rulers believed that their administration could not be firmly entrenched in the absence of education, and hence they wanted to utilize the educational system for strengthening their own political position. Fourth, Islamic social morals. The most important character traits expected of a Muslim are piety, humility, and a profound sense of accountability to God. Thus, Islamic education brought a concept of human equality, a pride in one's religion, a legal system which in many ways was an advance on the codes of time. Islamic education enjoins upon the students to exercise control of their passion and desires. Adequate stress was laid on well-defined norms of behavior, pattern of thought, building up personality and character of pupils. Fifth is preparing students for practical life. In Muslim period, learning was held in high esteem, and the learned were loved and respected all over the country. Important posts like posts of judges, lawyers, commanders of the army, and ministers were filled up from the educated class. Many Hindus were attracted towards Muslim education with a view to get these employment facilities. Thus, Muslim education prepared the students for practical life. Sixth, worldly progress. The state encouraged the educated people in every conceivable way. The post of qazis, preachers, and wazirs, ministers, were reserved for the educate. Besides, Muslim education also aimed at preparing the individual for future life. Many Hindus received the highest Muslim education and rose to high positions. 7. Establishing integration between religious and secular knowledge. Education in Islam was not merely of acquiring intellectual knowledge, but it was a means of molding the nature and character of an individual so that they can collectively represent Islamic value. 8th, formation of character. The aim of Muslim education was formation of character of students. Their life was very rigorous and hard, and the discipline a strict one. The centers of learning were situated at far off places. The system of education was well planned and systematically organized. 9th, preservation of culture. Muslim system of education worked for preservation and transmission of culture. Study of authentic work was compulsory. Rules and regulations pertaining to their culture were strictly followed. Emphasis was laid on the study of original work. The help and cooperation of kings and priests was readily available in this matter. Now, dear students, let us conclude. The general characteristics of Muslim education bears a resemblance with that of Hindus. The system of argumentation and discussion on philosophical problems continued among the Muslim scholars of the period. During this period, the teacher was a hard taskmaster and the pupil was subjected to strict discipline. The language is usually the greatest unifying agent. It makes expression of faiths, national sentiments, and social integration possible. In this background, the birth of new vernacular, Urdu, is a noteworthy characteristic of the period. The love of books exhibited by the Mughal rulers is superb. Their collection in the imperial library then is valuable property in classics in the libraries of the modern times. Thank you, students. Hope you have understood this lecture very well.